I'm going to get some angry emails or whatever from this, but it's going to be from people who are intentionally misunderstanding me. But I'm not so sure teachers deserve a raise in Texas. I know that's being debated in Austin right now, and everyone you see on TV or the newspapers or websites or whatever, we're like, of course they should make more money. I'm here saying, I don't know. Maybe they should. Maybe they shouldn't. But the rationale that keeps being given to me by our politicians in Austin and the TV stations reporting on this, and, Observer, Dallas Morning News, Tribune, whoever's reporting it, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, I'm sure they're all thinking, yeah, of course they should get raises. And I'm not liking the excuses for it, because the only one that I'm really gleaning from most of the reports is, well, other states are raising their teacher pay, so we have to too. It's like, no, have you never been in any economics class or read an economics book? Can you think like a private sector person for 5 seconds and actually put some sort of metric on this? Because, look, I don't think that teachers never deserve a raise, but it's really hard to make an across-the-board statement like that when you look at some of the statistics and facts around teaching in Texas. So here's what I would consider a good reason. I'll start with the positive first so you don't beat me up too bad. If scores were improving in Texas, like, oh my goodness, we're doing something right. We need to calcify these teachers in place and make sure they don't go anywhere. Let's give them a raise. But are scores up in Texas? No? So let me get this straight. You pay these teachers a set salary. 5 years later, scores are going through the floor and they deserve a raise? Nah, that don't make sense to me. Okay, what if you had the same amount of teachers as 5 years ago, but their class sizes, the average class size of a teacher has grown 50% or even 20%. Instead of having the average class size of 20, now they have 25. Okay, that would make a little more sense. But do we have significantly larger class sizes? No, not really. They're not really doing more work. Well, what if we had longer school days? That would make sense. Teachers deserve a raise. They used to just do school from 8 to 3. Now they do it from 8 to 5, 2 more days a week. That's 2 more hours a day. That's 10 more hours a week. Am I saying this correctly? But is that what's going on? Do we have longer school days? What about longer weeks? No, some of these are going to 4-day school weeks. What if we added more days to the school calendar? So now they're going to work more days in the... No. Well, what if maybe there were some innovations in education that reduce cost elsewhere, and with this extra money, let's reward the teachers? Did we have that now? Do we have a huge glut of open teacher positions that are going unfilled in Texas? No. Well, is there a huge gap between like what a teacher makes and what we observe the average salary of a teacher to be who leaves the profession? Like if a teacher with this education and this experience makes 50% more money when they leave teaching to go to another job, you can make the case that clearly they're underpaid as a teacher, but that's not the case either. Well, what if you looked at what a teacher made and not through the whole year, but, days worked, hours worked, and divided that into the salary? Do teachers, and we'll compare that to other civil servant type jobs, public service type jobs like firefighters and policemen. Now, firefighter and policemen on average make more than teachers, but not when you divide it by the number of days or hours they work. Teachers actually make more compared to these much more dangerous, stressful jobs. So what's the rationale? Let's hear it from KVUE, the TV station in Austin, Texas. Why do teachers in Texas deserve a raise? Let's hear.
At the Texas Capitol today, the Senate unanimously passed a bill to give teachers pay raises.
The raises would vary based on experience and the size of the school district in which a teacher works.
KVUE's Daniel Perot is live at the state capitol with reaction from lawmakers. Hello, Daniel.
Ashley, senators say that this is a historic investment, more than $4 billion that is badly needed because, while Texas has fair...
If someone calls this any one of these spending projects an investment, just know that they're probably lying to you. You're not going to get an interest rate back on the extra money we spend on this. No money is going to be put in your account. This is spending. It's not an investment. There's no return on the dollars. The dollars will be given to a teacher. The teacher will spend it. They're not going to put it in a mutual fund or an ETF or an annuity, and you're going to come back and in future years, you're going to get a return. It's not an investment.
Competitive wages for brand new teachers, the state starts to lag behind other states when it comes to existing educators. Under Senate Bill 26, teachers with 3 to 4 years of experience in rural districts defined as having 5,000 students or less would get an extra $5,000 per year. Teachers in
based
urban
on
districts
what?
with that same amount of experience would get a $2,500 raise. Rural teachers with 5 or more years of experience would get a $10,000 raise, and experienced urban teachers would get an extra $5,500. This would cost the state about $4.3 billion over the next 2 years. Governor Greg Abbott declared raising teacher pay an emergency item this session, in part because Texas is losing educators. But state lawmakers say these raises will help keep talented teachers in the classroom.
It's time for Texas to lead the nation in supporting our Texas teachers. And with this bill, we're making that commitment clear today.
There's no rationale on how they deserve more money. What is this? They can just drive scores down and we give them more money. And then what? In 5 years, when scores are even lower, do we give them even more money? What kind of sense does this make? Is this how a private school would operate? Is this how parents would choose school? Would they make any different choices if they had actual school vouchers and school choice? Or if we only had private options? You know, if you're going to try and convince the general public that teachers deserve a raise, maybe you should tell me some of their accomplishments for 5 seconds. If there are any. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I have a feeling that's not going to be very popular because it's always nice to say, oh, yeah, people are so important. They all deserve a raise. They're so special. And see how much nicer I am than you. All right, but you're still not basing it on anything. You're just trying to make other third-party observers think that you're a nice person, and that doesn't fly with me. Yesterday in the Texas legislature, the Senate passed a teacher pay raise, and whether or not you agree with the amount, the reasons given for the pay raise I found lacking. Just economically speaking, I find lacking. We need to raise teacher pay. Why? Because it's been a while. Because other states are doing it. No, that's not what raises are based on in a non-government, actual merit-based enterprise. I mean, think about like what I'm doing here as a radio host. If I got this job and the ratings were at a certain level and I come back 2 years later and the ratings are lower, do I deserve a raise? What if my ratings are the same? What if my revenue and ratings are both down? Do I deserve a raise? Absolutely not. Well, what if other radio stations are giving their host raises? Doesn't matter. You didn't perform here. Maybe they did better over there. But what if I come back in 2 years and my ratings are up and my revenue's through the roof? Do I deserve a raise there? Yes. You can make a moral, economic, logical, ontological argument that I deserve a raise. This is what I'm looking for when I ask you, explain to me, give me some metric on why you think teachers deserve a raise, because scores are down. Class sizes aren't going up. There hasn't been any crazy innovations or cost-saving measures or anything wild like that. They're not doing longer school days. They're not putting more days in the annual calendar. There's not a huge glut of open teacher positions. So don't just tell me teachers deserve it because they work hard or you don't know what you're talking about, because that's usually what I get is you don't know what you're talking about. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Oh, look at all the ladies here. Susan in Fort Worth, you're going to be first up on WBAP. What do you think about Texas teachers getting a raise?
I would say maybe, but I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are class sizes going to be increased to accommodate these increase in pay? Or what's this going to do to the competition for those teacher slots? So you have an individual who majored in math in college but is not currently a teacher, but might be interested in that kind of schedule, especially if the pay starts becoming competitive to their current working job. So I think you're going to have some competition that teachers may not be interested in at this time.
I like the way you're thinking about that. Yeah, you may not want to get this raise.
Exactly. And then what are we going to get? So teachers get a raise. Are scores going to go up? What are we going to do different? Are scores going to improve? Are students going to learn better? Are we going to put out a better product? See, what will that look like?
See, the frustrating part is you're asking a lot of great questions, and none of them are being addressed by either the Democrats or Republicans in Austin. They just know that if they vote for teacher raises, people will think they're a nice guy. If they vote against it, people will campaign against it and use it to bludgeon them in the next campaign. So the easy thing is to just take more money from you and spend it on, their preferred interest group here, and that helps their political chances the most. Has no effect on whether or not it does make better schools or better scores or better students or better teachers. So no, you're asking a lot of the good questions, Susan, and we don't have the answers for them. So thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Rebecca.
Bye.
Rebecca and Kemp, you're next up on WBAP. What do you think about teachers getting a raise?
I think they deserve a raise. My husband's a teacher, has been a teacher for 35 years. 35 years. I sat down and figured out his hourly pay rate at one point, and admittedly, my husband is a different person than a lot of people. He was making 25 cents an hour. 25 cents an hour. Yes, because he put that many hours into the classroom, out of the classroom. He was leaving my house at 6 a.m. and returning at midnight. And yes, those were all with the kids because he was coaching. And now he coaches robotics. He also teaches engineering, robotics, physics. He has 7 preps, 7 classes, which is incredibly unusual for a teacher. And yes, his class sizes are over 25 students a class. Yes, they are. Almost every single year.
Okay, so is that the experience of the average teacher in Texas? They all make 25 cents an hour and they leave at 6 in the morning and get home at midnight every day, walk uphill both ways in the snow?
I get it that you don't believe me.
No, I believe you. I believe you, but you're really stretching the numbers
not.
there. Well,
no, I'm not.
Look,
he was his coach.
I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying that if you go take what the average public school teacher works, their average hours, and you divide it into the average salary, on average, in every state in the country, teachers make more than the average police and firemen. Now, you have the one guy, Rebecca, if there was a bill in Austin that said Rebecca's husband deserves a raise, but the rest of them, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, then I would agree with you. But we're not talking about the one hardest working guy. We gotta peg everyone's pay to him. That's not a convincing argument either. That's like saying everyone on the Mavericks should get paid. Everyone on the Mavericks should get paid as much as Luka because he did more and he scored more of the points and did all that. That doesn't make any sense. And what that does is it. Anyway, are you still talking there?
But the problem with it is they don't have a way to award teachers that are going above and beyond.
Well, then make
Everybody
that. He doesn't
paid.
get a stipend. He doesn't get a little extra money for coaching. More so than other teachers?
$2,000.
Okay, then maybe here's what we do. We try and pass a bill through Austin that increases those stipends. So the guys that are doing extra work get extra pay. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an across-the-board teacher raise. And you're still not giving me a metric you're not giving me a metric on the average teacher and what they've done to deserve a raise. The average class sizes have not gone up significantly. The average salary per hour is greater than that of a policeman or fireman, especially when you count the 3 months off that they take during the summer. There's not a huge gap in teacher pay and the average salary of teachers who leave the profession. There's not more school days on the school calendar. There's not longer school days. The scores are going down. So
could make if they left. There is a big gap between what they could make if they left the profession, because I know multiple teachers over the 35 years that left teaching because they can make so much more outside of teaching.
Yeah. Okay, but part of the allure of teaching is the schedule. Part of the compensation you get is the 3 months off. Also, if you're a parent that has kids in school, your schedule matches theirs. So there's a lot of other intangibles built in there, but that's kind of the experience that most people have when they leave one profession and start another one. It's usually to make more money. And the comparison between those leapfrogging career changes and what teachers experience when they leapfrog careers is about the same. So no, there's not a big enough gap between teacher pay and the average salary of teachers who leave the profession to warrant, and it hasn't changed over the last 5 years to warrant a raise. You're still not giving me a metric on a reason why teachers deserve to get this raise. Your husband works hard. That's fine. That's cool. But that's not what I'm looking for. And that doesn't answer the question. What have teachers done in the last 5 years to deserve a raise? We have one of them that works hard. Okay. That's not what we're looking for. I don't find the rationale behind this raise in this fashion very convincing. One of the places I was digging for this story and details on it comes from Texas Scorecard. My next guest, also from Texas Scorecard, Jeremy Kitchen. Welcome back to the James Show. And so the details on this teacher pay raise, one of the things that I think would be a lot more politically popular is if there was some sort of merit attached to it.
Sure. Yes, sir. I mean, I think that's, I was introduced for Texas Scorecard. I actually work for Texas Policy Research, but we dove into this bill and we specifically support the bill. We support the bill to the degree that we believe teacher pay increases should be based on merit and not this antiquated tenure system. But we're absolutely opposed to the bill as it's written, as it was passed, largely because it appropriates billions more in taxpayer money to this when they should be redirecting existing resources from the already existing bureaucracy, this overburdensome administration, support staff, that sort of thing. And, we have other objections as well, but that's largely why. It does nothing to address that. And in fact, we're spending record amounts of money on public education right now. A third of our state budget goes to public education. And as you've talked about in multiple segments before this, the results aren't necessarily there to justify it.
So nice to hear someone's on my team in this one. Explain to me why they have differentiated the raises between small districts and large district. The fewer than 500 students is just some weird arbitrary line that deserves more money.
I think there were people that will argue with me, but yes, it absolutely is, right? Just the way that most, I've been a long-time observer. I worked as a bureaucrat, a legislative staffer for 3 different lawmakers previous to this. And, this is how you get people on board, right, with what you're doing. Obviously, a lot of objections on whether it be the school choice bill or things that specifically deal with pub ed or public education, rather, are surrounded on how much money am I bringing home to my district, right? And so these are just ways that statutorily you write in these things to bring people on board, bring lawmakers on board to vote favorably.
Well, Jeremy Kitchen, I also find this painfully ironic in the fact that one of the overwhelming drivers of so many voters in this last election cycle was school choice. And they're going down to Austin, and instead of giving a school choice, they're giving a raise to public school teachers. They're calcifying and strengthening the public school system instead of trying to redirect resources to the more efficient private sector.
This was one of our objections as well. You're spot on. Any observer of the current ongoing 89th Texas legislative session and, of course, the primary and general election cycle before this knows that very obviously deals had to be made in order to usher in this kind of school choice legislation that you see the governor promoting, now Speaker of the House promoting, Lieutenant Governor promoting, right? As of yesterday, the House version of the school choice bill had enough, 75 additional co-authors, meaning it has enough support to get across the legislative finish line. You don't have to be naive enough to see kind of through the forest through the trees here is that we are ultimately, to get those people on board, they're supportive. A lot of these folks are supportive because you're also simultaneously doing this billions more towards public schools in another bill, right?
I hear you. All right. All good stuff. Jeremy Kitchen, I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Can I squeeze in one call? Thank you, Garrett. This was, Wade and Alvarado, you're on WBAP. We only have like a minute and a half. Can you make it quick?
Yeah, I can make it quick. 38%, let's just start with DISD. 38% of teachers are not certified. Okay. Second of all, I'm not going to put my wife.
What's the point of having hang on, sorry to interrupt. What's the point of having a certification if 4 out of 10 of them aren't certified? Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I don't believe in it. I don't think they deserve it, okay? But that's 38% of DSD. That can bring the school grades down. So second thing is, my wife left industry to go back to be an elementary teacher because she saw that it's not working. The second thing is that my daughter works for Starbucks. She makes $65,000 plus bonuses. She nowhere near works as hard as my wife does. And most teachers that I know that are certified that have been teaching for the last anywhere from 5 to 18 years. And they are underpaid. But yet you have to pay them all to give the ones that deserve it, right? And school choice is going to pass. And it's going to make the ones that are not teaching right, that are just going through the paces, they're going to have to step up their game or they're going to get replaced, okay? Because they're going the public schools are going to have their teachers work harder to not lose them to private schools. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, that would make sense if this happened in a vacuum, but from the last time we gave them raises, did that happen? Did we get more qualified, certified teachers in there, or did the number go up to 38% of DISD is now uncertified?
Well, first of all, you could give them what they want, but my wife didn't make anywhere near $60,000 a year going back there. She took a $20,000 pay cut to go back to school.
I hear you.
I'm praising my wife, but what I'm saying is, if you want a good,
I'm sorry to do this. I'm just out of time. I really hate cutting people off. I am just out of time. People think I'm talking about your spouse or your mom or your daughter or your sister or your whoever, or if you're a teacher, I'm talking about you. I'm not saying all teachers are sorry. I'm just saying when you look at the averages across, we're not asking for a pay raise. The Senate just didn't pass a pay raise in Austin for the good teachers, for the ones that are putting in the extra work, for the ones that are doing a hell of a great job. It's for across the board. It doesn't matter if you're the worst teacher in the school district. It's on this tenure system, or if you have over X amount of years, you're going to get a pay raise. Depending on how big your school district is, that determines whether or not you get more money. What kind of incentive is that? So, look, we all need to take some of the private sector approach that we have at our jobs and look at teaching that way. One of the problems is it's in a public school. If this was all private schools, I wouldn't have any say-so on whether or not they deserve to get a pay raise or not. But since we're paying for it, I think you guys should be a little more tight-fisted, or at least ask a few more questions and not be so quick to just accept, oh, well, teachers, everyone deserves a pay raise. I know you're trying to sound like a nice person, but that's not what makes better schools. Greg in Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
Well, in general, yes. There was a lady on earlier, talked about average pay for a teacher, what her husband makes. I have to agree with that statement because my wife is a teacher. The number of hours she puts in puts her hourly pay rate extremely low. And we talk about, you say they get 3 months off for the summer. They do not. My wife might get about 3 weeks of the summer off.
So she does summer school.
She will get stuck summer school by no choice.
But the average teacher experience. Okay, but we're not doing it for this one anecdotal experience. It's not the teachers that are going to summer school and working more hours that are getting a pay raise. In fact, I know you probably weren't around when I started this segment, but that's what I was looking for. Are you working more hours than you used to? Are you working more hours than other teachers? That's a merit-based reason to give someone a pay raise. If their student scores are going up more than other teachers, or scores are going up in general, that would be a good excuse for a pay raise. But that's not what's in the bill. That's not what's being sold to us. It's just a tenure thing and based on the size of their school district. So I'm not saying your wife's a terrible teacher and she doesn't deserve a raise. I'm saying just because we have a few good teachers out there doesn't mean all of them deserve a raise. That doesn't incentivize a better school system. That doesn't incentivize other lesser teachers to act more like your wife if they're going to get the same raise that she's getting.
But they don't do it on a merit base through the school system.
That's what I'm saying.
Years is tenure. Out they teach, and everybody is on that same pay rate, irregardless of how they teach in the classroom, which a lot of what they teach in the classroom is not by their choice. That's coming from administrative. That's coming from people that haven't been in the classroom
but that has
in 20 years.
I agree, but that has no bearing on whether or not they deserve a raise. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate you calling in, Greg in Fort Worth. I do. Hector in Franklin, you're on WBAP. What do you think about the teachers getting a pay raise in Texas?
Well, I feel like your last two callers are victims of our poor public school system. There's no such word, first of all.
It's irregardless. We don't have to be nitpicky about that.
Yeah.
Stop it.
The second one is the gal who said her husband made 25 cents an hour. Now, there's only 8,760 hours in a year. Times 0.25 is less than $2,200 a year. So somebody would maybe stretching the truth.
I know. Listen, I don't want to like own these people and to win the argument. I don't want to point out
I understand what you're saying.
I want to try and convince them.
If you're going to come to the table, at least come with a good, valid argument. Don't let your emotions get involved. Come to it with some facts. And, if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't like how you're getting paid, go get another job like anybody else in the world's going to do.
Well, here's what I find frustrating. After hearing that, Hector, they're going to think that we disagree with them or we're politically opposed to them, like we're on the other team. But we all want the same thing. We all want better schools, don't we? Well,
100%, man. I was blessed to have some great teachers. And you know what? They did it because they loved to teach. They did it because they wanted to make a difference. And I understand that 100%. I really do. But it's you don't fix the system by just throwing money at it.
Well, because we've thrown money at it in the past and it got worse. So doing this again is going to yield even worse results. And so when you start to look at, well, what does make a better school? Why do some schools do better than others? Why do some schools have kids who show up more often? Why do schools have some kids who get better grades? Why do schools have some kids who have less disciplinary issues? And the determining factor isn't the amount of money that the teachers make, or isn't the amount of money that the independent school district spends per student. The number one determining factor on almost all of these educational metrics is how many of them are being raised in a home with both of their biological parents. And that's the discussion we need to be having, not, hey, can we take more money from James and Hector and Garrett and everyone else who pays taxes in Texas and just throw it at these union members in the public sphere, these government workers? No, because our private sector school teachers going to get a raise with this? No. So not all school teachers are going to get a raise from this. The ones who are in the school systems that are doing the worst are going to get rewarded. And this isn't the real conversation. We're not going to get better schools. This is not good for our kids. This is not good for our state. This is not good for education, period. We need to be having these other conversations because, if they think, well, we threw more money at it, that should make things better. Well, they're going to be sorely disappointed when things continue getting worse until we start addressing the real root causes. And that's more cultural than government. There ain't no amount of money you can throw at a school that can replace a dad. There ain't no amount of money that you can throw at a teacher and replace a dad. And that's a conversation that people just don't want to have because the left wants to pretend like it doesn't exist or it's false, and the right doesn't want to be labeled as someone who's just mean. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to say, teachers, I'm not so sure you deserve a raise, even though a lot of people are going to say, well, that's mean. Well, am I wrong? You can call me mean if you want, but you can't call me wrong. My buddy Evan Say it's coming up next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.